Hi everyone, today I'm going to start with the introduction to ethical hacking. So this will be like a first video of how we are going to start. So these will be the topics which I'm going to cover today. Okay, let's have a look at these topics one by one. So I'll start with define cybersecurity, information or security. Second one will be like the essential terminologies. Then we will have a look at like what are the elements of information security, different elements which we have. Then we will move on to what are the defense in depth and some security levels and the security threats which we are following, some common motive of attackers, as well as some attacks classifications and attack vectors. So these will be the topics which I'm going to cover in this video. Okay. So let's start with the first topic, like what is defined cyber security and information security. So what do we mean basically by this? So cyber security is like a practice of defending our computers, servers, mobile devices, electronic systems like the IoT devices, networks, and any kind of data from the malicious attacks. Goal of our cybersecurity is basically to prevent unauthorized users from stealing and misusing information or services from any medium or any kind of approaches. Coming to the next topic, like the essential terminologies, there are different terminologies which anyone who is interested in cyber security should be aware of. So let's start with the first one, that's your hack value. So hack value is a notion among the hackers that something is worth doing or is interesting. So whenever we talk about the hack value, we basically means that whatever we're doing or whatever thing which we're going to attack should give us something in reward, something which is valuable, worth of money. Or if we are doing hacking out of our interest or some revenge, then also it should give us some fruitful results. So that basically is determined by what's the hack value of that particular thing. Coming to the next one, like the vulnerability. So vulnerability is like the existence of a weakness, or you can say some flaws in design or implementation or in some of the policies. So due to some implementations or policy errors or design errors, your vulnerability comes into your system, which can basically lead to an unexpected event, and that can compromise the security of your system. Or if in terms of network, it can compromise your network, as well as it can compromise your application, whatever application you are working, if any vulnerabilities does exist in your application. Coming to next, like this is exploit. So exploit is basically a breach of an IT system through any payload which we are using. Okay, so whatever vulnerability which was existing in the system, if we are exploiting that, if we are breaching that particular IT system through the use of those vulnerabilities, and that is basically called an exploit. The next one is your payload. Payload is your basically a part of an exploitation code that performs an intended malicious action. So let's suppose we want to do a cross-site scripting attack or SQL injection attack. So whatever payload, whatever cross-site malicious code which you are entering into your application will basically be considered as your payload. Next one is your zero-day attack. So zero-day attack are very vulnerable attacks in which that attack basically try to exploit a potentially serious software security weakness that even the vendor or the developer who developed that application are not aware of. Okay, so attacker takes an advantage of this since developer are also not even aware like this vulnerability exists into their system. So attacker take an advantage of it, and that's why it's called as zero-day attack also. It is an attack basically in which we exploit the computer vulnerability before developers or engineers releases a patch. So this attack is called zero-day attack only until there is no patch being released by the developer. So once developer releases a patch for that to fix that particular vulnerability, this particular exploitation will no longer be called a zero-day attack. Next one is your daisy chaining. So daisy chaining is like an attack in which hackers gain access to one of a network of your devices and then uses it to access the next networks or devices. So it's like a horizontal level of doing the attack in which first you gain the access of one machine, and then in a horizontal network all the machines which are connected to a same network or something, you're trying to gain access of all those other machines as well. So that's like an example of a daisy chaining. Next terminology is like a doxing. So doxing is your finding and publishing your personal identifier information that we commonly call as PII data about an individual or an organization for the malicious reasons. Like you may have heard, like after some card breaches or some data breaches usually happen, and after doing that, hacker what do? Hacker basically upload all the information on the dark web and try to sell those information so that these can be used for the malicious reasons, basically to gain some money or something. The next one is your bot. So bot is like your software application. So bot, or you can say robot, is your software application that can be controlled remotely to basically execute or automate predefined tasks. So a bot is basically installed in your system or something, and that can be controlled remotely by some other attacker or someone from the other computer. So that is a bot. Okay. So these were the different essential terminologies which we are having. Now next come the elements of information security. Okay. So the very first element which we have is like the confidentiality. So confidentiality is like information which is intended only for some particular person should be accessible by only those persons. Okay, the persons which are basically authorized, so that the information should be confidential. Second one is your integrity. Integrity means there should not be any corruption in between. Means the data which we are sending should not be tampered during transmission and should be intact in its original form. So integrity basically ensures that the accuracy of the information, because since there is no corruption in the data, there is no tampering in the data, this means the information, whatever information was being sent from the sender, it was actually received by the receiver. Third one is availability. Availability means you're ensuring systems availability to an authorized person, or in general, if the people who are accessing the application, then that particular application should be accessible to them. So that's like availability. Fourth one is your authenticity. So the one's identity is created with a proof and basically confirmed by a system. Okay, so whatever authentication control measures which we have into a system, so we basically create an authentication IDs and all for different person, and that person trying to log in into that using their particular IDs, then that should be authenticated. So that's like an authenticity point. The last one in this is non-repudiation. So in this case, the sender and receiver cannot deny that they haven't either sent the message or have not received the message. So we can use an example of digital signature, so that whosoever is sending and receiving the message can basically digitally sign that they have sent or received the message. So that in this manner, there will not be any non-repudiation. Okay. And these three, like the confidentiality, integrity, availability, these three basically make a CIA triad. This is a common terminology which we will be hearing every day in, day out. Like CIA triads: confidentiality, integrity, and availability triad. So these are the elements of information security that we need to keep in mind. Next comes our defense in depth. Okay. So what do we mean by defense in depth? So defense in depth means putting more multiple layers of protection to basically help prevent the malicious intent people from coming to us, basically to our systems, and to discourage them so that they go someplace else. Okay, so it's like if we take an example of real life, we can consider this as placing a security in our house to prevent burglars to steal something, information, or anything from our house. And to prevent that, we do adopt various methods, like we do have fencing around the house, we do have dogs, we do have motion sensors, alarms, we do have CCTV cameras, and also we do have doors, locks, and windows locks. So these are just like the example of physical security system which we have whenever we are trying to prevent burglars from doing any threat into a house. Same can be applied into terms of an organization. In terms of organization, there are three control measures an organization can adopt. Like one is administrative control, physical control, technical control. Okay. So like in terms of technical controls, if we'll see terms of technical control, they can be a network things, software thing, and hardware thing. Means whatever hardware which you are using should be a secure one. There should be multiple layers of that encryption and all. Similarly, in terms of software, like only authorized person should be able to handle the particular things on. And same for the networks, like your network, that whatever data which we're trying to communicate over the network should be a secured one. So these all comes under your technical controls which an organization can take care of. The second one can be a physical control. So physical controls can be in terms of like a physical security which we mentioned, like here, like it should all, because all the data which we are maintaining will be in kind of some servers on some So they should be basically protected from any outside bug entity, even or from the internal entity as well. So these are like a physical controls. And the second the third one is an administrative control that can be basically be defined into your policies and procedures. So they can be different policies to basically for the different employees, and some procedures for what things and what step we need to do. So this is like a defense in depth we should have in place. The second one is your security levels. So there are some security levels related to what are functionality, security, and usability. So let's see first what all these. So the functionality is basically the features which are basically present in your system. So whatever functionality, like if you take an example of Amazon, you are searching a product, that's like a search functionality. You are logged into an application into Amazon, that's like a login functionality. So whatever things are present in features present into your application or website is like a functionality which is present. Coming to usability, usability is like a GUI, graphical user interface of the system, and that is how user friendly it is. So if you are, again I take an example of Amazon, so we are able to perform a search operation. We are able to perform any item whatever we try to search for from the UI, and also these are the usability from the GUI perspective. And third one is the security, means how secure your system is and what are the processes of the system are used and who are basically using them. So these functionality, security, and usability are all interconnected, and any change made into any one of them directly decreases the other two. Means if we take an example of if we take an example of let's suppose I am increasing the security of our application. So if we are increasing the security of our application, this means it will adversely affect both the functionality as well as the usability of the system, because when we are making our system more secure, then we are somehow reducing the functionality which we are providing, or also some of the restricting usability of the system. In the same manner, if we are increasing the functionality into a system, this means we are somehow compromising with the security of our system as well as the usability, because the more the feature, the less the usability, less the security. So we should have a basically a equilibrium between all our functionality, security, and usability whatever we have into a system. So next one is the security threats. So threats mean anything that has a potential of causing damage to the system. So attack has not happened yet. Nothing has been happening to your system yet. So it's just a possibility. It just has a potential that this can cause damage to your system. And any security threats can be of three types. Like it can be of network threats if the attacker is trying to attack your network. It can be of host based if an attacker try to attack your host machine, or it can be an application based threat if an attacker try to do attack on your applications. So let's first see what are the network threats. So network threat is when attacker may break into the channel and steal the information that is being exchanged. So whenever we are doing any communication or exchanging our data between our two system, or so it can be either directly or it can be over the internet or over the network. So if an attacker try to intercept and break into the channel and catching the information, stealing the information that is being exchanged, then it will come into your network threats. Okay. There are some example of network threats which we can classify them. Like the first one is a sniffing attack. So sniffing attack is like interception of data by capturing the network traffic using a packet sniffer. So here the attacker is basically intercepting the data whenever it will go into your network traffic. Okay. The second one is your MITM attack, means man in the middle attack. In this, attacker basically intercept an existing conversation or a data transfer either by eavesdropping or by preventing to the legitimate participant. So you may have a question like in both the sniffing attack as well as man in the middle attack, we are intercepting a data which is getting exchanged over the network. So what's the difference between these? So sniffing attack is like a passive attack in which we are just intercepting the data, but we are not doing anything with the data. But in the case of man in the middle attack, so man in the middle attack is like a man in the middle of both sender as well as receiver. So whatever information which sender is sending to receiver, then attacker which is in the between in the middle is eavesdropping that or intercepting the data and then basically sending it to receiver. Similarly, the receiver, whatever information receiver is receiving, it's not coming directly from the center, but it's coming from man in the middle. So it is like a man which is in the middle of both sender as well as receiver. So this attacker can act both as a passive way or as an active way as well. Like example, whatever information sender is sending, then middleman can send all the information directly to receiver without tampering anything. So in that sense, it is just intercepting the information but is not doing any modification with that information. So that is like a passive man in the middle. But in case whatever information sender is sending to receiver, the middleman is modifying some of the data in between and then sending it to receiver. So that is like a active man in the middle attack where the man in the middle is modifying of the data which it was intercepting. Next one is your DNS poisoning attack. So in DNS poisoning attack, we basically redirect the web traffic towards a fake web server or some other phishing websites. And the password attack is where we try to intercept the network to basically intercept the passwords. It can be of anything like a bank or any social media websites or something. Next comes the DDoS attack. So DDoS attacks is your denial of service attack, where we are basically attacking the application so that it should not be a function anymore. So these are different example of network threats which an attacker try to attack the network. Next come your host threats. So the host threat is the attacker that tries to gain access to your system uh, and then try to get access to your information from that particular system. There are different type of host threats. Like first one is a password based attack. Means we try to basically cracking the system password. So we try to do randomly like brute force attack or some different kind of attacks to basically crack the system passwords. Second one is arbitrary code execution. Third one is a privilege escalation. Like in privilege escalation, let's suppose if you are a normal user and trying to access a machine, and now you're trying to do some privilege escalation so that you can have an admin right of that particular system. So that's like a privilege escalation attack you're doing. Physical security, as we are talk earlier also, like basically to maintain security, physical security of your data, like your data servers, your so that it cannot be basically impacted physically. Backdoor attacks, these are the attacks which are basically launched by the attackers where to create some backdoors so that they can take in control of the system remotely. So these are all the examples of like host threats, host based threats where we try to gain information from a particular system. The last one of this comes like the application threats. So application threats is an exploitation of vulnerabilities that exist in the application itself. And some examples of the application threats are like the first one is the improper input validation. Here, if we are not doing any input sanitization and all, then we can send any malicious code into our input, and that can basically compromise our application. Second one is security misconfiguration. If we are not doing any session management or any security configuration, so if we are not making any role based thing, then it can be security misconfiguration. Any normal user can access your admin based role and can basically tamper with your application. Third one is your broker session management, in which we are not basically maintaining our sessions properly, and anyone can take an advantage of that to basically control over the session. Information disclosure, identity spoofing, SQL injection, XSS attack. All these are example of application threats, like which can be used to take an to exploit the vulnerability which are present in the application itself. Now next comes what are the security attacks. Until now we look into what are the security threats. Now we are going to look into like what are the security attacks. So attacks means an attempt to gain unauthorized access to a system or network. So security threats was like a possibility, like it was going to get attacked. And security attack just mean we are actually attacking the system. So it's an attempt to gain unauthorized access to a system or a network. So whenever we are doing an attack, so attack is a combination of motives. So whenever and it the matters like how we are doing the attack, and also what are vulnerabilities which we are exploiting to basically launch that attack. So coming to next one, like what are the common motives of attackers? So why do any attacker do any attack? So these are some of the motives like why attackers do attack. One the first one is data theft. uh, to delete the data, to manipulate the data, so that basically whatever data is present in the system, the application or over the network, it can get tampered, so that whosoever is the receiver will get the either will not get the manipulated data or will not get the data at all. Second one is to create fear of the panic. So basically, if an attacker is trying to attack your application, so some of the users will stop using that application out of fear, out of panic that this system is under attack. So that's like a common motive of attacker. Third one is like a destroy reputation of the target. So whenever an attacker launches an attack on a particular organization or something, it can have a financial loss or else it can have a reputation loss as well. Like if a company is trying to have a business with that particular organization, so they may reconsider their thought, like if this organization is already under the security attacks, their system are not so secure, so that can do the destroy the reputation of that particular organization. And also in terms of financial losses, that can also be happen because their share price can go down and all because of those bad publicity and all. It can also lead to interruption of business flow, because whatever we're doing any kind of attack, it can basically break down your system, it can basically interrupt your business flow. These are also like the common motive of attacker to basically interrupt business flow. And also in the last one is the revenge. So any attacker can basically take a revenge out of any application, out of against the anyone. So these are some of the common motives basically used by the attackers. Now comes to next one, like what are the different kind of attacks classification. Whenever we are launching attack, we can classify into some of these categories which an attack. Like the first one is your passive attacks. So in the passive attack, we don't tamper with the target system directly. We only intercept or monitor the network traffic. Okay. Second one is your active attack. So it's just like the name. Active attack is where we tamper with the target system directly. We basically modify, delete the data or whatever we want to do. Right? We do that actively attack. Second one is close-in attacks. So close-in attacks are just attacks which can be happen only in the close proximity only. So we cannot do a close-in attack from the remote system and all. We need to be in the enough proximity of that particular system where we want to launch an attack. Second one is an insider attack. So this attack is basically performed by the trusted person. So these trusted person can be anyone, means they can be other one who are already employed with that particular organization or an insider person who are launching an attack on that particular system or application or organization. Next one is the distribution attack. So distribution attack comes when we try to tamper with the hardware or software prior to do their installations. And so once we do tampering with that particular hardware or software, and once it will be distributed in the market and all, then it will be your tampered or virus loaded hardware or software. Next one is a defensive attack. So this is like a use of actions or strategies to defend against any of the attacks which is basically going to attack. And the opposite one of this is offensive attack, where we basically involve attacks against the attackers. Next one is your semantic attacks. So here in this, instead of harming a system, we take over the control of the system while maintaining the perception that it is operating correctly. So just the owner of that particular system took a complete take over of that system. Next one here, Smurf attack. So in the Smurf attack, we try to make a perception that everyone is trying to attack and every other thing. So it is an attempt to cause users on a network to flood each other with the data. So when user will be flooding each other with the so much of data, then it will make it appear like everyone is attacking each other. And this will help the hacker basically to remain anonymous. The last one on this video is information warfare or info war. So this is a classical attack which is happening nowadays everywhere, where we use companies and organization or even the nations use information and communication technology to gain competitive advantages over an opponent by using different means like virus, worm, Trojan horses, logical bombs, trapdoors, etc. Now let's look at the last topic of our today's video, like what are the different attack vectors. So what are attack vectors? So attack vector is basically a method or a pathway used by a hacker to access or penetrate the target system. Okay. And some of the common attack vectors which we have are like the first one is a ransomware. So ransomware is a classical attack vector which is happening nowadays, where attacker basically restrict access to your files and then in exchange it demands for some of the bribe in terms of bitcoins or something, and once they will receive it, they will basically grant payment, they will basically grant access to your files. This is the classical example of ransomware which is happening nowadays. Second one is a cloud threats. So cloud threats, all the data nowadays we use to store over the cloud, and whenever the data breaches is happening over the cloud, then it comes into your cloud threats. Third one is the IoT threats. So nowadays we are using so many IoT devices. So some of the devices are not securely built, so they can be easily accessible because they are very insecure IoT devices. So these kind of threats which are on the IoT devices, these comes into IoT threats. And the last one is the APT, that is advanced persistent threats. These are basically one which is backed by the government or nations or some organizations also. So these are the low and slow type of attacks in which a APT group try to keep their profile low so that they will not be backtracked or they will not be highlighted, and also they keep their attacks slow so that they will not be detected. So that's why we usually call this a low and slow attack. So these are the common attack vectors which we have into the system. So that's all I have for this particular video. Thank you so much everyone for watching this. If you like the video, hit the like button, share this video with your friends and colleagues and other cybersecurity enthusiasts who are interested in knowing about the ethical hacking and cybersecurity field. And also please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next video and will continue this introduction to ethical hacking module there. Till then, take care, goodbye, and have a nice day.